let's start with chapter number 14, the national movement 1870 to 1947. So the revolt of 1857 was prelude to the Indian national movement which prepared India to rise against British untimely. The second half of 19th century, what it showed growth of national political consciousness in India, right? So they started developing feeling of the belonging to the nation, sharing culture, history and common goals for the future. So first is your economic exploitation. British who initially came to the traders gradually established their monopoly. उन्होंने क्या करा, धीरे धीरे अपनी monopoly start करी and they turned India into supplier of raw material, right? Now awakening of Indians to their rich culture and heritage. So Western scholars like Max Muller and William Jones translated the Vedas and Upanishads and other work of literature into English. The writing made Indian aware of their great culture heritage. The work of Theosophical Society, Brahmo Samaj, Arya Samaj and Ramakrishna Mission अवोक a feeling of pride in India. इन्होंने क्या करा, एक जो feeling है pride की वो उसमें क्या हुई, अवोक हुई, right? And afterward political, administrative and economic unification हुआ आपकी country का. So India was unified under British rule as one unit. British introduced uniform system of governance throughout the country. And laws, at least in theory, were uniformly applied to. वो सबको apply हुए थे. So the order to ensure efficient administration, what it's done, it introduced new means of transport and communications, railway, postal, and telegraph system, right? So the uniformity resulted in unification of the people of India as they groaned under the British. They united against them. Now spread of modern education. The British had introduced English education in India as they wanted to prepare a class of Indians जो आपके different policies को support कर सके, ठीक है? And also help at lower level of administration. But if we talk about, but the spread of modern education had a reverse effect, and the introduction of modern education in India, it opens the floodgates of liberal European thought. Modern education become the medium for the modern ideas as well as for mode of communication between educated Indians जो किसको belong करते थे, different linguistic country of the regions of the country, right? And afterwards you can see that role of press. Indian press played an extremely important role in the strengthening national consciousness. Major जो factor responsible था rise of nationalism के लिए था वो था growth of vernacular journalism and literature. So what happened? The regional press reached a greater audience with revolutionary ideas than English language press. So the work of scholars and writers like Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, Rabindranath Tagore, Subramanya Bharati, Bhartendu Harishchandra, what they did, they arose a national conscience among the others. अपने आपस में भी करा और दूसरों के साथ भी करा. National literature is a form of novel poetry essay played significant role in generating feelings of what patriotism and nationalism among the people of India. Now foundation of National Congress, formation of various political associations in different parts of country. What it prepared? Foundation of Indian National Congress. और किसने करी थी? A.O. Hume. Right? The first session कब हुआ था? December 28, 1885. Bhumesh Chandra Banerjee was elected president. 72 delegates ने attend करा था, and they included eminent leader as Bhumesh Chandra Banerjee, दादा भाई नरोजी, तैयब, बबूद्दीन तैयब जी, विश्वाचा, आनंद चल्लू, C. Veeragocharya and Gopal Krishna Group. In the moderate ways of early years. So if we talk about in the first 20 years, 1885 to 95, the Congress acted moderately in its objective and methods. Moderate leaders felt that British had respect for the ideals. उनको लगा कि British के मन में थोड़े ideals की respect है and would accept the just demand of it. So what happened? Indian professionals, groups, zamindars and industrial as well as peasant labor and forest dwellers. The moderate ways to use the early years were promoting spread of education, elected representative in provincial and central council, recruit Indians for high government posts and holding, reduction in revenue tax and change in economic policies of the government, freedom of speech, treatment of Indian labor and cut in military expenditure and removal of arms. No prayer, no petition. So we can see that leader like Lala Lajpat Rai, Bal Gangadhar Tilak, some Lal Bal Pal कहते हैं, they dedicated the policy of prayer and petition. Right? इन्होंने क्या करा? डिस्कार्ड करा पॉलिसी ऑफ प्रेयर एंड पिटिशन. Radical way to express their opinion and demand. They began to explore more radical objective and methods, and they emphasize importance of self-reliance and constructive work. So next, British and the failure of moderates achieve anything concrete led to the belief that their methods were not to bear fruit. भाई जो उनके methods थे वो fruit bear नहीं करेंगे. So the leaders seeking more radical objective ways were known as radicals. They were called good intention of the government, and people must fight for Swaraj. तिलक raised slogan freedom is my birthright and I shall have it. Freedom मेरा birthright है और मैं इसको लेके रहूँगा. Right? Now partition of Bengal होता है 1905 में. ये biggest था. So Bengal was the biggest province of India and comprised part of modern day Bihar and Odisha, apart from whole of the modern day West Bengal and Bangladesh. So on 16th October 1905, Lord Curzon wisely ordered a participation of Bengal. He claimed that it was necessary to improve the administrative efficiency. उसने क्या प्रूव करा कि जरूरी है किसके लिए कि हम एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव एफिशिएंसी को क्या करें, इंप्रूव करें. Real reason for this move to crush the national movement in Bengal, and it was part of the divide and rule policy. किसका part था? Divide and rule policy का, right? So the purpose of participation also to break the linguistic unity, because spite of these religious differences, both communities were united by the common language. जैसे आपकी बंगाली होगी. So boycott movement affected British trade, भाई इंडस्ट्री को भी इफेक्ट करा. And you can see that कांग्रेस लीडर ने किसको सपोर्ट करा? स्वदेशी को और बायकॉट मूवमेंट को. And the British did not record the way Indian accepted. So mass mobilization हुआ, बायकॉट of the British institutions, right? Goods were being advocated by radicals. Now main events क्या थी? First is Muslim League and सूरत split. Participation of Bengal ने क्या करा? जो ब्रिटिश ने क्या शो करा? Seed of communalism, right? And the Muslim thought that they might lose their identity if they join the Congress. Muslims को ऐसा लगा कि अगर हमने कांग्रेस को ज्वाइन कर लिया तो हम अपनी आइडेंटिटी खो देंगे. So Nawab Salimullah Khan of Deccan and Prince Aga Khan founded Muslim League to protect the interest of Muslims. So what happened? So the extremists left the Congress in this session, and this came to be known as Surat split. इसको ही क्या बोला जाता है? सूरत स्प्लिट बोला जाता है. Now, Morley Minto reform. The whole country was restless in the British response, recalling Lord Curzon to England. Minto succeeded him as Viceroy of India, along with John Morley, the Secretary of the State in England. Minto drew up the plan of win black goodwill. Indian Council Act of 1909 or Morley Minto reform. Main features क्या थे? More members were inducted into Central Legislative Council and Provincial Legislative Council. Right? Separate electorate were introduced for the Muslims. Some seats were reserved for Muslim, and only they could stand for election or vote for them. Now, revolutionary movement, the first phase. The early year of 20th century saw the growth of revolutionary movement. So, what happened? The forced to achieve the objective of independence from foreign rule. They killed many British people and some revolutionary also. They were active abroad, especially after Europe or America. The Ghadar Party was Revolutionary Association, published journals to spread revolutionary ideas, and it also sent revolutionaries to organize uprising in India. फिर आपके खुर्दिम बॉस आते हैं, प्रफुल्ल चक्की, बीडी सवाकर एंड मडामे बीकानेर चामा. ये कुछ revolutionary leaders थे, and the revolutionary activities of Indian continued till about the end of World War I. और revolutionary, however, failed to achieve their ऑब्जेक्टिव ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस, और वो फेल हो गए. और वो जो उनका ऑब्जेक्टिव था इसका फॉर द अचीवमेंट ऑफ इंडिपेंडेंस, वो फेल हो. सो द ब्रिटिश यूज्ड इंडियन रिसोर्सेज एंड सोल्जर्स टू फाइट फॉर द वॉर, एंड दिस क्रिएटेड ग्रेट डिफिकल्टीज फॉर कॉमन पीपल. बट द बिजनेस ग्रुप रिपीटेड हाई प्रॉफिट्स फ्रॉम द वॉर. उनको हाई प्रॉफिट्स मिले वॉर से. सो व्हाट हैपेंड? दे कॉज ऑफ डिक्लाइन ऑफ इंपोर्ट्स फ्रॉम अदर कंट्री इनटू इंडिया. सो व्हाट हैपेंड? अ लार्ज नंबर ऑफ सोल्जर्स वर रिक्रूटेड इन द आर्मी इन द वॉर and they were sent to fight abroad, right? Many Indian soldiers, they were killed. बहुत सारे Indian soldiers मारे गए थे. They returned after the war. They had to know how completely understood them. And furthermore, in 1917, what happened? There was a revolution in the Russia. क्या हो रहा था? revolution हो रहा था. There was a revolution in Russia. News about the peasants and workers' struggle, the ideas of socialism. Meanwhile, the home rule movement began, which was led by Tilak. It spread all over India, demanding self-government. In the face of International Congress gaining strength, British Secretary of State what it announced in 1917 aim of gradually developed self-governing institution. This created great hope among the Indians. इनने क्या करा? Great hope जागा किसके? Among the Indians. Now mass movement. After 1919, struggle against British rule gradually became a mass movement involving peasants, tribal students and women in large number. So occasionally factory workers as well as certain business groups began to actively support the Congress in 1920. And there were circumstances that Mahatma Gandhi emerged as a mass leader. So Gandhian era 1940, most influenced personality who shaped the course of character of the national movement as Mahatma Gandhi. Gandhi was born in Porbandar, Gujarat, 1869. He studied law in England. During his stay there, he fought against the oppression of white rulers against the Indian living there. During this struggle, he evolved concept of satyagraha and non-violent struggle. Right? So Gandhiji returned to India in 1950 at the age of 46, both national and international level. So we can say that he founded in 1961 he founded Sabarmati Ashram in Gujarat and opened people of all castes. उन्होंने स्वदेशी गुड्स का यूज करा जैसे चक्र और खादी. He took up the causes of indigo planters in the Champaran, Bihar 97 and forced the government to make inquiries into injustice done. जो भी injustice was उसको inquiry करें. In 19 Gandhiji has become the most popular leader in India due to his efforts. Common people for the first time they also involved there. Right? Rowlatt Act आता है 1919 में. आप किसी भी पॉलिटिक एक्टिविस्ट को क्या कर सकते हो? अरेस्ट कर सकते हो without a warrant, right? ये गांधीजी recalled for nationwide protest against the Rowlatt. गांधीजी used non-violent and innovative means of mass protection, and प्रार्थना सभाs they were organized and peaceful demonstration were carried out. सत्याग्रह सभा were organized in many parts of the country. जिससे आप क्या कर सकते हैं? मोबिलाइज कर सकते हो लोग. Next is सत्याग्रह. Gandhiji policy of non-violent resistance is known as satyagraha. It drew influence from several sources such as Upanishad, Jainism, Leo Tolstoy and John Ruskin. और जो एसेंस था आपका सत्याग्रह was to oppose wrong without hunting the oppressor. Gandhiji arrived in India in 1950 from South Africa. At the age of 46, he spent his first year traveling throughout the country and understanding the needs and the overall situation. सबसे पहला जो कॉज था इंडिगो पीजेंट्स का वो आपका चंपारण बिहार में देखने को मिलेगा. He came in contact with Rajendra Prasad. Next, he took the cause of textile workers जो अहमदाबाद में थी 1980 and success उनको मिला इन गेटिंग द कंसेशन. जलियांवाला बाग मस्करे 1919 10 अप्रैल टू नेशनल लीडर डॉक्टर सफरुद्दीन किफले और सत्यपाल they were arrested in Punjab. Public meeting was held at Jallianwala Bagh on 30th April. Protest against the arrest was there. Lieutenant General ने क्या करा? फायर करवा दी and number of people died there. Right? Firing lasted for 10 minutes till ammunition was exhausted. Hundreds of people killed and thousands were critically mauled. The massacre shocked the entire country. And it was widespread. Rabindranath Tagore surrendered his knighthood, the honorary title, which was returned to Keshri medal given for him for the service during Boer War. Khilafat and non-cooperation movement. It is the first World War. Turkey was among defeated national war. As a result, it was partitioned as the Sultan of Turkey. And the agitated Muslims, जो Muslims थे, they Sultan थे, they regarded as Khalifa, religious head of the Muslim entire world. So what happened? You can see here. The movement was launched in 1920. इसमें दो ब्रदर थे, that is मोहम्मद अली और शौकत अली. Right? They were किसने सपोर्ट करता है? मौलाना आजाद, हजरत नूहानी और हाकिम असलम. Right? Gandhiji and many other Congress leaders viewed खिलाफत of agitation. June 1920, all party conference met at Allahabad. और उन्होंने क्या अडॉप्ट करा? प्रोग्राम ऑफ बाइकॉट ऑफ स्कूल्स, कॉलेजेस एंड लो कोर्ट. Khilafat Committee launched non-cooperation movement in 1920 and demand for the Khilafat Committee and Congress was merged into one. इससे आप क्या कर सकते हो? अपनी सारी डिमांड्स को फुलफिल कर सकते हो. Now widespread participation of the people. People from all communities and classes in urban area took part in non-cooperation. Mostly people resisted British rule. लोगों ने क्या करा? British rule को resist करा and British non-violently in some cases it didn't Gandhiji call in their own manner. People thought that Gandhiji as a kind Masiha. So, as someone who could help them to overcome their misery or poverty, Gandhiji wished to build class unity. And zamindars and agriculture जो laborers थे, they believed that he would provide them land. And in many forest villages, peasants proclaimed Swaraj and believed in Gandhi Raj. Right? Using Gandhiji name, peasants and tribal undertook actions. action that did not conform to Gandhi ideal and the people linked their movement to the local grievances. For example, in Assam, tea garden जो था laborers का, they were shooting Gandhiji Maharaj की जय, and they demanded what to increase their wages. उन्होंने क्या कहा, हमारे wages को increase करा जाए, right? And afterwards you can see that non-violent campaign against the high land taxes revenue demand was increasing. फिर आपका चौरी चौरा इंसिडेंट हो जाता है. चौरी चौरा इंसिडेंट क्या होता है 1922 में. With the non-cooperation movement still going strong, an incident took place in Chora Chori. In February 1922, police opened fire on a group of peaceful demonstrators. They sparked a violent protest. Peasants torched a police station and 22 policemen were killed in that incident. Gandhiji against violent protests, so called of non-cooperation movement. Swaraj Party, after the withdrawal of the non-cooperation movement, Congress broke into two main groups. So in 1923, one group was led by C.R. Das and other was Motilal Nehru. And what they formed? They formed Swaraj Party, right? And the party decided to fight election and obstruct functioning of legislative council, right? And what happened? You can see that uniform and continuous or consistent obstruction were held. Simon Commission. In November 1927, British government appointed Simon Commission under chairmanship of Johnson, right? A working of the government of India Act 1990. So secondly, commission did not approve to Indian demand Swaraj. उन्होंने approve नहीं करा. International Congress decided to boycott the commission, and when they arrived on 4 February 1928, slogan was given, Simmons go back, that was raised all over the country. फिर आपका पूर्ण स्वराज रेजोल्यूशन आता है, डिमांड ऑफ कंप्लीट इंडिपेंडेंस, right, had been growing for some year. At the annual session in 1928, what we demanded dominant status. Jawaharlal Nehru was made the president of the Congress at Lahore session 1921, और इन्होंने क्या डिक्लेयर करा? पूर्ण स्वराज, मतलब complete independence as the Congress object. Tricolor flag of freedom was adopted on 31st December 1920. 26 January 1930 was fixed for the first independence day. So civil disobedience movement and the Dandi March. During the Lahore session of Congress in 1929, revolution offered a nationwide civil disobedience movement was passed. The goal was for the achievement of complete independence. One of the first issue of the protested was the imposition of salt tax by the government. In those days, salt manufacture was monopoly of the government, which imposed tax on it, and everyone had to pay the tax when they purchase. जब भी आप salt purchase करोगे तो आपको tax pay करना पड़ेगा. गांधी मूवमेंट ऑफ सिविल डिसऑर्डर फेमस मूवमेंट थी. दांडी मार्च फॉर साल्ट सत्याग्रह कब स्टार्ट हुई थी? ये आपकी 12 मार्च 1930. गांधी जी ने साबरमती छोड़ा आश्रम एंड दे रिलीज टू गांधी जी ऑन गुजरात तक, और उन्होंने वहां पे जाके क्या करा? एक पिक सॉल्ट को पिक करा और सॉल्ट लो को ब्रेक कर दिया, राइट? And the government resorted to repressive measures, and about 60,000 people were arrested, right? And they called Gandhi to suspend the civil disobedient movements and signed a pact in 1931, जिसको हम गांधी इरविन पैक्ट कहते हैं. And according to this pact, Gandhi agreed to suspend the कि हम चलो civil disobedience movement को suspend करते हैं and participate in the second round table conference, and Viceroy agreed to release all the prisoners. और वाइसरॉय ने क्या कहा कि ठीक है, हम सारे जितने आपके प्रिजनर सबको रिलीज कर दें. तो दोनों के बीच में क्या हो जाता है? गांधी इरविन पैक्ट हो जाता है, राइट? फिर होती है आपकी फर्स्ट राउंड टेबल कांग्रेस 1930 में. व्हाट हैपन? ये कहाँ हुई थी? लंदन में हुई थी. एंड डिस्कस द रिफॉर्म. कांग्रेस बॉयकॉटेड इट. ओनली मुस्लिम लीग जो थी और हिंदू सभा और रिप्रेजेंटेटिव जो थे इंडिया के प्रिंसेस पार्टिसिपेटेड. Without participated of the Congress, no decision on constitutional changes would be taken. So इस वजह से क्या होता? कांग्रेस यहाँ पे आपकी कॉन्फ्रेंस का फेलियर हो गया. फिर सेकंड राउंड टेबल कांग्रेस होती है 1931 में, दिसंबर में होती है. यहाँ पे गांधी जी was the only representative from the Congress. The British government had also invited representative from Muslim, Sikh, Christians, and Indian princes. Unending discussion on the communal issue led to the failure of conference. और what happened? Mahatma Gandhi returned to India. फिर गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट पास होता है 1935 में, राइट? डिस्कशन ऑफ थर्ड राउंड टेबल कॉन्फ्रेंस व्हिच टुक इन लंदन इन नवंबर 1932. एक्ट प्रोवाइडेड व्हाट? फॉर द एस्टैब्लिशमेंट फॉर ऑल इंडियन फेडरेशन. द फेडरेशन वाज टू बी बेस्ड ऑन यूनियन ऑफ द प्रोविंस ऑफ ब्रिटिश इंडिया, and although princes ruled their state and they could have no real power and they were completely at the mercy of British. So what happened? Provincial autonomy हो जाती है. So British passed the Government of India in 9535 Act suggested a creation of all Indian Federation of British Indian Province and Indian State. It prescribed provincial autonomy, but only 14% of the population was to have right. खाली 14% population ऐसी थी जिनके पास क्या था, right to vote. And the system of hierarchy was into the center. Reverse subjects जो थे वो आपके defense, external affairs, police, and they were reserved for Governor General. So the transfer subjects like health, education, they were responsibility of legislature. In September 1939, Second World War broke, and the British declared war of India on the behalf without consulting Congress. So what happened? Congress leaders were ready to support the British in war, but in return they wanted independence of India. The British refused, and the Congress minister resigned the protest. So फिर आपका क्या होता है? Quit India movement आता है, and later what happened? To seek a support of Indian leaders in the Second World War, Cripps ने क्या करा? Cripps mission came to India in March 19. जिसने क्या करा? Dominant status मांगा after the war was over. The proposal rejected. Both Congress ने भी कर दिया और Muslim League ने. So on August 1942, All Indian Committee was set up and passed Quit India Movement resolution and decided to launch third mass movement. So Gandhi told the British to quit the India immediately. छोड़ के जाओ भारत. To the people he said, do or die in your efforts, करो या मरो, but your fight must be non-violent. पर violence नहीं फैलाना है, non-violently होनी चाहिए. So the police fired at the demonstration, communication and symbols of state authority, and they were attacked all over the country. The demonstration clashed with the police, and many thousands were killed and wounded and arrested. In all the corners of the country, people had expressed an intense desire for the complete freedom. मतलब बहुत लोग चाहते थे कि हमें क्या मिल जाए, complete freedom मिल जाए British. फिर INA, that is Indian National Army, Subhash Chandra Bose, founder of INA, believed in revolutionary method to attain freedom. So in March 1941, Bose escaped from the Kolkata prison and reached Berlin. And you can see that during the Second World War, when Japanese army started advancing towards India, INA soldiers joined the Japanese and entered Delhi, marched to Delhi. And even though INA failed to liberate India, it boosted the morale of the freedom fighters in India. Now towards the independence and partition. In 1940, Muslim League has moved a resolution demanding independent states for Muslims. Right? The League began viewing Muslims as separate nation from the Hindus. And the end of the war in 1945, the British opened negotiation between Congress and the League, and failed because League saw itself as a sole spokesperson of Indian Muslims. Right? And you can see here that British Prime Minister Attlee was sent out a mission to the Cabinet of India in 24 March. इसको हम कैबिनेट मिशन कहते हैं, जिन्होंने डिमांड रखी मुस्लिम लीग फॉर अ सेपरेट स्टेट. ठीक है, मुस्लिम लीग ने क्या लिखी? सेपरेट स्टेट की डिमांड. एंड मिशन सजेस्टेड इंडिया शुड रिमेन यूनाइटेड एंड कॉन्स्टिट्यूट इटसेल्फ एज अ लूज confederation. Based upon the recommendation of cabinet mission plan, the election to the provincial assembly was held in July 1946. और जो इंडियन नेशनल कांग्रेस was formed and interment government and center headed. Interment government भी फॉर्म हुई थी जिसके हेड कौन थे? जवाहरलाल नेहरू. मुस्लिम लीग was greatly disturbed and it declared 16th August 1946 as direct action day. It led to Hindu-Muslim riots killing more than 5 lakh people, especially in Noakhali in East Bengal. So Muslim League, in spite of its early hostile stand, finally joined interim government, but it continued with its demand for separate state. On February 20, 1947, Clement Attlee, the British, literally neglected PM in the British Parliament, and the announcement was immediately followed by appointment of Admiral Lord Mountbatten as a new Viceroy of India on 3rd June 1947. Right? Mountbatten announced the plan for transfer of power and participation of India. Princely states were free to join India or to remain or independent. So what happened? Indian Independence Act of 1947 was introduced in British Parliament on 4 July 1947. At the stroke of midnight hour on 15th August 1947, India became independent and Jawaharlal Nehru was the first Prime Minister of independent India. और जो Lord Mountbatten था, it was a sworn it as the first Governor General of independent India. Right? Northwest Province in East Bengal also came into being after Lord Mountbatten. Chakravarti Rajgopalachari became the first and the last Indian Governor General of India. If we talk about in other parts of the world, in 1935, thousands of communists under Mao Zedong marched to the third base, Karachi from the Jiangxi province. Right? Communists are those who believed in communism in political system and control production of all foods and goods, and there is no privately owned property. यहाँ पे कोई privately owned property नहीं होती. Right? This is all in this chapter. Now the chapter has been completed. Now let's do the exercise. Dash was popularly known as Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. Dash Pact was signed between Gandhiji and Ambedkar. Pune Pact. Dash means self-rule, Swaraj. The way of the Dash was to fight. It was radicals. The Indian National Congress was founded. कब found हुई थी Indian National Congress? That is 1885. Now let's start with the fill in the blanks. The Dash Round Table Congress was held from September to December 2nd. Gandhiji returned to India in Dash at the age of 46. कब रिटर्न हुए थे? 1915 में. Next is some revolutionaries were also active abroad, especially in Dash and America, Europe and America. Dash succeeded Lord Curzon as Viceroy of India. किसने succeed करा था? Lord Minto. The खिलाफत मूवमेंट हैज इट्स ओरिजिन इन, जो खिलाफत मूवमेंट है उसका ओरिजिन कहाँ हुआ था? टर्की. Now write T for true and F for false statement. The Government of India Act passed in 1931 created All Indian Federation. True. The early phase of Indian national cause dominated. False. सत्याग्रह was supposed to keep peace and non-violence. It's true. भाई आपको गोल अचीव करना है शांति से, कोई लड़ाई झगड़ा नहीं करना. चौरी चौरा resulted in the call of. It's true. Civil disobedience. Lord Mountbatten was sworn as the first governor. It's true. British policy divide and rule. Government of Indian Act 1932, Jallianwala 1919, Porbandar, Gujarat and Pune Pact 1909. Now answer the following. Discuss those developments that led to creation of. आपको developments बतानी जिससे creation हुआ किसका? पाकिस्तान. How were the methods of Swadeshi Satyagraha and Ahimsa Union? What was Rowlatt Act? Right? What was the politics of radical within the Congress different from other? Why were the people dissatisfied with British rule? What do you mean by Swaraj? And what is Rowlatt Act? Right? This is all in this chapter. Hope you understood each and everything. Now we will meet in the next class. Thank you.